There's a big revolution happening inside trade theory, and we'll bring some of the intuition from those models to bear on our results over here.
Sorry, what is a regime? How should I think of it?
A regime, a regime is a political regime, and it's a good question. How should we think about political regimes? And this has been, majorly debated in political science. And usually, and I will take an empirical point of view. An empirical point of view is the imperfect measures of regime quality by Freedom House and Polity and Przewalski et al. Scores, and there is 10 or 15 of these kinds of scores, and each of them focus on different dimensions of political rights, civil liberties, contestability in elections, and they're very disparate in terms of their concepts. So I don't have a specific answer to your question in terms of yes, it is contestability in election. No, it's a bit more than that, and it's entirely driven by what measures are available. And you will see the motivation for why we want to use a different set of dependent variables or measures of regime quality than have been used so far. We're fortunate that political scientists at University of Illinois have produced these measures, but I'm coming to that. Has there been a previous work on the impact of globalization and regime change? Yes. There is 4 or 5 studies, but all of them, to our mind, imperfect. And the political science studies which have been well cited in this area are by Eichengreen and LeBlanc, Lopez Cordova and Meissner, Milner and Kubota, and Barrow and JPE, Giavazzi and Tabellini in General Monetary Economics, and Rigoban and Roderick. And the first on the political science side, one of the problems with those studies is that they do not take into account fixed effects, and the heterogeneity across countries is so vast that it impairs the credibility of those results. On the economic side, the Barrow, Giavazzi, and Tabellini and Rigoban and Roderick, they do use fixed effects to some extent. They vary in their identification strategies, and I think one of the strongest aspects of our paper is its identification strategy. We rely on Acemoglu et al.'s result, a very recent one, to produce an instrument that instruments for the endogeneity of openness, but more on that in a second. Okay? So the outline is basically a very small and rapid, quick discussion of the theory, then the data and the results. So what's the theory? What's the mechanism by which globalization might change regime scores or might alter regime quality? Well, our simple theory is this: that globalization increases inequality. There is very, very strong empirical evidence to this context, which goes against the Heckscher-Ohlin theoretical grain, but that's the nature of the evidence that has come up in terms of what the implications for globalization in terms of trade openness for inequality are. So if globalization increases inequality inequality is the focus of Acemoglu and Robinson's idea of what might cause regime change. So in their paper, very simply in their book, there's an inverted U shape, but basically greater inequality has not very good implications for regime quality, and I'll lay out the theory verbally very soon, but let me tell you about why globalization and inequality is a contested area. It's controversial, but the evidence is that globalization causes inequality. Yeah.
Is this inequality between countries or
it's within a country? This entire analysis is within analysis. It's got fixed effects. It's about variation. It's a country's experience over time in terms of openness and regime. So the entire inequality measure is a within country inequality. Okay?
So can you say again why Heckscher-Ohlin predicts increasing inequality?
No, hexaroline predicts a decrease in inequality.
Decrease, not increase in inequality?
The hexaroline model predicts a decrease in inequality. So take the example of a developing country, which is capital poor and labor rich, and in the it's Stolper-Samuelson, straightforward. So
Increase in labor.
that's exactly. So openness will increase the returns to labor, decrease the returns to capital, and decrease inequality. Okay, but there is this large movement inside trade which says that the hexaroline model, as we know it, is not that valid. So Davis and Weinstein in their AER paper, they reject hexaroline. They accept extensions of hexaroline which include non-tradables and similar technologies and geography thrown in there. But then Stolper-Samuelson may not be valid when you're extending hexaroline in that direction. So I'm not sure about the validity of Stolper-Samuelson in an extension of hexaroline. I haven't seen that result. The basic idea of why hexaroline is rejected, because hexaroline needs similar goods to be imported, which contract a sector and expand your comparative advantage sector. But in the real world, what's happening is that you don't have competing goods being imported that washes out a sector and expands your comparative advantage sector. These are non-competing goods, and on the margin, that doesn't do. The Stolper-Samuelson theorem is not valid, and in fact could have exactly the opposite effect if you have non-competing goods. There is a great review, a survey paper by in JEL by Pavnik and Goldberg, which establishes. They are circumspect about using the word establishes, but in my mind, it is the state-of-the-art evidence on the fact that globalization, trade openness, has increased inequality, not decreased it. Again, within country inequality.